Right, welcome to the lecture on direct marketing. It's one of several lectures on the promotional elements involved in an integrated marketing communications campaign. So we'll start with direct marketing and there'll probably be about 3 sub-lectures here. Then we'll move on to other promotional elements such as sales promotions, PR and sponsorship, and personal selling. So I want you to imagine that you're at home and you go out to check your letterbox and you find a little packet of something that looks like toy soldiers in your mailbox. So obviously you're going to open the packet and have a look inside, and upon further investigation you'll realize that it's not the traditional soldiers that you see, on movies like Toy Story, where they're little green figurines of men doing combat and army sort of maneuvers, but instead they're actually little plastic figurines of kids doing everyday kid activities like reading a book, riding a bike, etc., etc. So then you realize, well, this is actually a non-profit promotional campaign run by UNICEF. And what they're trying to do is draw attention to the plight of children soldiers around the world, particularly on the African continent, where kids are kidnapped from their villages and then basically forced into being kid soldiers. And so there's a rehabilitation program that UNICEF runs, and this is part of a drive to gain charitable donations for this particular cause. So I'm using this example because it's a really vivid example of how direct marketing works and how it essentially breaks through the clutter and really gets people to notice it and respond to it straight away. If you compare this sort of direct marketing tactic versus perhaps seeing an ad on television trying to draw your attention to the plight of child soldiers, or perhaps a brochure or pamphlet, or maybe even a billboard somewhere, it probably doesn't have that same impact as finding this package of little toy soldiers or toy, I guess, plastic figurines of kids, and then engaging you in that manner. So this is far more impactful. And this is one of the reasons why direct marketing is one of the fastest growing promotional elements in advertising and marketing, because it really has the ability to cut through this clutter, engage the audience with the target segment, and get them to do something. The learning objectives for the first part of these lectures on direct marketing are, first of all, what is direct marketing? So looking at some definitions there. And then secondly, the pros and cons of direct marketing. So what is direct marketing? Essentially, it's any advertising material sent directly to the customer that's designed to create some sort of immediate response. So if we go back to the example of those toy figurines, the response there was to get you to open the package, engage with it, understand what the message was about because you're curious, and then do something. In that particular case for UNICEF, it was for people to donate to the cause, or at the very least make an inquiry into what the campaign is about. Now, hopefully the response is some sort of transaction at the very end of what you're aiming to do, and that could be, as I mentioned before, a donation, or typically it could be to place an order or to purchase something from that company that's just committed to that direct marketing. But it can be also other things, such as getting people to visit the website perhaps, or getting people to provide some personal information so that it may be added to the database, or it could be just getting them to touch base and reach out to seek more information with the company, so that at least the company is aware of this customer that may be interested in their product or service. So unlike advertising, particularly mainstream broadcast advertising, such as a TV ad, or maybe if you think about a radio ad or a billboard, the main point of that is to draw awareness and transmit information. However, with direct marketing, you're doing more than just transmitting information. So obviously, the direct marketing material will draw attention and raise awareness and hopefully transmit some sort of information to the customer or the audience, but it's aiming more to do that. And so as a philosophy, direct marketing is about engaging the receiver and getting them to respond in some way. So that's the key thing. And if you think of that philosophy of direct marketing, rather than just the tactic of sending some brochures out or sending packets of toy soldiers, etc., etc., the philosophy of direct marketing is to get your message out there, inform the customer, and then expect a response in some way because you've engaged them directly. So as I mentioned before, it's one of the fastest growing promotional elements. And the reason for that is it's highly accountable, because unlike a TV ad where you know how much it costs and approximately how many people are watching, that television program, and then as a sort of estimate how many people may be exposed to your ad, unlike that sort of advertising, direct marketing, you know exactly how many people you're reaching because you're sending the message out, or the material, the promotional material, directly to the people on your database, or directly to a bunch of homes within a certain suburb, right? So you know exactly what you're sending out, and because you know exactly what you're sending out, you also know exactly when they respond, what they are responding to, and typically it is the direct marketing promotional material that you've sent out. So it's highly accountable. If you spend $50,000 and you've reached 50 homes, and within the material, there's a way for them to contact you, and when they contact you, you can pretty much figure out exactly how they heard about you, and therefore you can work out the return on investment of that direct marketing campaign. So it's highly accountable, and businesses love that because they're spending money, and sometimes with advertising you don't know what that money is actually going to return, whereas with direct marketing it is far more measurable. It also has the benefit of acting as an additional exposure, as I mentioned before. So if we go back to that example of the UNICEF toy soldiers, that is going to be an additional exposure above and beyond the other advertising within the integrated marketing communications campaign. So that's not the only thing they might be doing. They might have a billboard, they might have a website, they might have TV ads or radio ads, but this acts as an additional exposure, and one that is particularly engaging. The effectiveness has been enhanced with increased sophistication of databases. So direct marketing, as we'll see later on in the lecture, perhaps in part 3, direct marketing is heavily reliant on data. And as data within company databases becomes more rich and sophisticated, then direct marketing becomes better. Because instead of just targeting an address or a household, you can target specific households or specific people. And now with social media and other electronic databases, you can target people based on demographics, based on their psychographics or lifestyle preferences, based on other information they may have volunteered to you that you've added to your database. So as the data gets richer and more sophisticated, your direct marketing campaigns and material can be more targeted and relevant, which means you minimize wasted exposure, right? Because you're directly reaching only people that are interested in your product, service, or brand. So we can talk about a target market of 1, whereas if you think about mainstream broadcast advertising such as TV or radio or billboard, that is impossible. It's very difficult to get a target market of 1 using those traditional forms of advertising. But with direct marketing, you could very well have a target market of 1. The example I love to use is, imagine you're the marketing manager for a high-end luxury automobile company such as Jaguar or Lamborghini or Ferrari. Now, you have already a database of existing customers, and you probably know that the people in that database are fairly well off, and that they probably would like to, replace their vehicles fairly often. So looking at your database, you can easily see, you can sort by the people that bought a car from you maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And then you could narrow it down and look at people that are interested in a specific type of model within that brand. And then you could, based on that information, there might only be one person who has bought a Lamborghini 5 years ago within a particular suburb that is close to your dealership. And so that is your target market of 1. You want to send that person the high-end glossy catalog of the latest Lamborghini model, send it directly to their house, and basically that catalog might cost $25, $50 to make because you'd have a whole bunch of them bulk produced, but you only need to send it to that one person and then ring that one person to make sure they've got it and engage with them that way. So what we see there is a combination of direct marketing, getting the catalog out to their house, followed up by personal selling. So this is how these promotional elements work in an integrated fashion, because we are talking about an integrated marketing communications campaign. So this target market of one is only possible through databases, and direct marketing is a particularly good promotional element at using databases. So finally, one of the final reasons of why direct marketing is becoming more popular is because its image has improved. Right, so if we look at the last two examples I've talked about, a high-end glossy catalog advertising the latest model of luxury vehicle, or the packet of toy soldiers, those two, they're not in any way perceived as junk mail, right? Whereas in the past, direct marketing has been almost used synonymously with this idea of junk mail. Right, so this crap that you get in your letterbox, and it's all flyers and promotions, and you basically just throw it straight into the recycling. These days, because of the database, you can send only direct marketing material to people that you think are ready to hear about your product, brand, or service, and therefore, because it's relevant to them, it's not going to be junk mail. And because you're not trying to send it to everyone, you can really focus and make sure you send high quality material to very specific people. Some other factors supporting direct marketing usage. So these are more sort of external factors within society. So first of all, people are becoming more isolated, particularly with the all the things you can do online now. And so with that isolation means that people are more reachable through direct marketing, and also means that they might be spending more time at home. Particularly if we think about what's happened with COVID-19 over the last year plus. People are in lockdown, or they're isolating more, so they're at home, and so they're not going to be out as often. So things like billboards may not be as effective, but with direct marketing, if they're in your database, you can still reach them. Right, so as people become more isolated, and as home ownership increases, or as people, I guess, live in smaller household units, whether it be renting or ownership, you can target these households more specifically, rather than trying to reach everyone through mass media. People are becoming sort of more time poor. I don't know if they're necessarily becoming money rich, but certainly time poor. So everyone's busy, everyone's got lots to do, everyone's got distracted attention and competing priorities. And so what direct marketing then is only target the people that will find your product, service, or brand relevant at that particular time in their life. Because we know that if you see an ad just because you're out and about, or if you see an ad just because you're watching a TV program, or something pops up on YouTube, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to react or respond to that ad, right? Because you might not be within that window of opportunity, and your time is precious, and so you're not going to be paying attention to ads that are not immediately relevant to you. But with direct marketing, because you're targeting people through your database, you're only targeting people when they're in that frame of mind to be receptive to your product, brand, or service. And so you're using the best use of their time as well as your resources. People have broader horizons now. They're far less brand loyal, and therefore they're also variety seeking or willing to try new things. If we think about the older generations, they were very brand loyal. They had sort of one brand of detergent or one brand of cosmetics, and they would always use that. And so direct marketing is not really necessary, because you're not trying to convert or switch anyone or convince anyone of anything. You just need to make sure your product is available and people are aware that it's still available, and people will go and buy that brand over and over again. However, sort of the newer demographics, people, university students, for example, or people within your age bracket, you're not particularly brand loyal. And so that means that when it comes to trying new products or services, you're willing to give it a go if you think the value is good enough for you, and it's not going to be too much effort for you to try these new things. And so direct marketing works really well, because unless they directly communicate with you the benefits of their product, brand, or service, you won't know about it, and you'll just remain in your habit. But if they can disrupt your habit and provide some information and some value regarding their product, brand, or service, then you might just switch. And the point of direct marketing is that it's making that process of switching, or the process of trying their product, really easy, particularly with online retailing these days. Society is becoming more heterogeneous. That means we're becoming more diverse. And with that, it means that the messages you send out can no longer be one size fits all. You have to take into account that society is made up of many, many little subcultures and subgroups. And so direct marketing, once again, with the sophistication of databases, can target messages in a particular way at a particular group of people. Whereas TV, mainstream, or billboards or radio, you're basically sending one ad out there, reaching a whole bunch of people, and hoping that that ad translates across every subculture within that the broadcasting radius that you've sent that message out. With direct marketing, you can target specific subgroups. You can send, marketing material in a particular language to a subgroup over here, change the language to a subgroup over there, change the imagery, change the message, change the criteria and attributes you think will be more relevant to your particular subgroups, and therefore take into account that diversity of modern day society. People are becoming cashless, so that means that they're used to digital transactions, using their credit card online or their debit card, or PayPal, for example. And direct marketing works very well with that because it's linked heavily with online retail, digital retail. And so as people become more comfortable with a cashless society, direct marketing then becomes even more successful in converting people to make a transaction or switch brands. The power shift to retailers is another factor supporting direct marketing usage. So I'll mention this sort of throughout this entire course about how, as a brand owner or a manufacturer, often you rely on a retailer, which acts as almost a bottleneck, where it collects all these different types of brands from various manufacturers and presents it to society or to the marketplace as sort of a one-stop shop. Right, so that's the retailer, and therefore the retailers are very powerful. Retailers such as Countdown and Pack and Save and Rebel Sport and the Warehouse Group, they essentially import or collate a whole bunch of different products that have been manufactured by hundreds of different types of brands, and they present to the customer only what they think the customer wants. And so therefore, if your brand that you manufacture or produce is not 100% unique or does not have a compelling case or is easily substitutable by any other brand, then it makes it very difficult for you to get onto the retailer's shelf, right? Because they already have products that they sell that work, that give them the profit margin that they're after. So one way to sort of mitigating that power shift to the retailers is to take control of the retail channel yourself. And direct marketing is obviously the best tool for that, because once you can establish your own database, you can essentially market directly to that database, and therefore you cut out the middlemen or the retailers and you go directly to the customers in that sense. And then once you've developed a bit of momentum and brand loyalty and market share, then the retailers might think, well, there's this brand over here that seems quite popular, it's not on our shelves, maybe we should have a discussion with that company, right? So because of this power shift to retailers, direct marketing is becoming more and more attractive to manufacturers of all sizes, but particularly startups and entrepreneurs that don't have the street cred to get into a retail environment just yet. So then they can go directly to their customer base. The splintering of media audiences. So this is related to the point above about a heterogeneous society. So people are becoming more diverse, and with diverse demographics come diverse tastes in media, right? And so instead of being able to reach everyone using just one TV station or one platform, you need to now try to account for the various types of media that audiences are paying attention to. And so as the number of people are reduced that can be exposed to any one vehicle, you need to then maybe think about just trying to reach them directly rather than trying to reach them indirectly by exposing them to an ad on a program that you happen to hope that they see. So often that's how mainstream advertising works, right? You pick the most popular TV show within your demographic, you buy an ad space there, and you hope that while they're watching that TV show, they stick around and are exposed to your ad. But there's a lot of guesswork there. Whereas with direct marketing, if you have the information and you go directly to them, you know that they've been exposed to your ad. And so therefore, you don't need to try and guess where they're paying attention to in terms of the media that they're consuming. And finally, direct marketing works very well with other promotional tactics. I mentioned earlier the idea about sending a glossy catalog about the latest luxury automobile to the one person that you know is bought their car 5 years ago and is ready for a new model, and then follow that up with personal selling, which is ringing them up or contacting them via digitally via email perhaps, or messaging them. So that's an example of how direct marketing and personal selling works really well. The other promotional element that works really well with direct marketing is sales promotions, which I'll cover in a separate lecture. But sales promotions, if you think about sending out samples or sending out promo codes or competitions, that integrates really well with direct marketing. So often competitions, which are classified as a type of sales promotion, works well with direct marketing because it adds information to the database that then can be used in direct marketing to further send information and perhaps promotional deals to people that are interested or have already indicated interest in your product, brand, or service. So here are some pros of direct marketing. The number one thing is that it's got very selective reach, or is able to be very selective in its reach. By that we mean that instead of trying to reach everyone, like the entire society of the country that you're operating in, you're only selecting a very specific group of people to communicate with and get them to respond and engage with your brand. This is related to point two, which is the direct marketing's segmentation capability. So this means that you're able to segment what you want to say and who you want to say it to very, very sort of specifically. We contrast that with something like radio or TV broadcasting. You're sending one message and trying to reach everyone, or as many people as you can, and you don't really have the opportunity to segment your market because you're putting it on one TV platform or within one vehicle that is appealing to one type of people. With direct marketing, it's the opposite, right? You don't really need to guess what TV programs they're interested in order to try to reach them, because you have their actual data already. You already have a way of contacting them, and so you can contact those people directly and be very selective. And because of that, this leads us to point three, and that is that frequency is still possible. By that we mean high frequency of communications is still possible, instead of low frequency, which is very sort of infrequent communications, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. With direct marketing, you can contact that person every day if you wanted to. I probably wouldn't recommend it, but certainly every week or every month, or specifically during the times of the year, you increase the frequency when you think they're going to be in the market for your product, brand, or service. And the reason frequency is possible is because of point one, essentially. Because you're not trying to reach everyone, you can save the budget and focus and concentrate on reaching only that segment that you're interested in more frequently. It's highly flexible, so direct marketing, and I've got lots of examples coming up of how direct marketing works really well for not only the end consumer or the audience that you're interested in, but also business-to-business audiences. So it's highly creative, and you can provide a lot of information as well, because you're going directly to this market that is interested in your product already, so they're more likely to take the time to read the information that you're sending directly to them. It can be timely. So if something happens in the world that is really relevant to your brand or a particular group within your database, you can immediately send them a message, right? Whereas with things like TV and magazine ads, there's a fairly long lead time, and something major could happen in society, and then you need time to basically pivot and react and work out how you're going to buy the ad space in order to send this message. By the time that's happened, it's kind of irrelevant. And so with direct marketing, because you have their contact information in your database, if something happens that you think is particularly relevant to your brand, product, or service, you can get that message directly to those customers immediately. It's personalizable because you're sending very few communications to a very small specific group of people. You can personalize it. right? The most common example of this is a direct mailer that goes into your email because you've already signed up for some brand loyalty program at some point, right? And so it'll say, greetings, John or Jane or whatever it might be. These are our offers this week, etc., etc. Here's a promo code. So, once again, this is an example of how direct marketing is being linked with digital media and then further integrated with sales promotions. Cost, so it's very cost effective in the sense that you can account for exactly who you're sending your direct marketing material out to, and therefore you can also track when they respond to it and how much they purchased from you, and so you can work out that return on investment very accurately, and this makes the cost not only efficient and effective, but potentially also lower than if you were to try and do a massive ad campaign using TV, radio, and a whole bunch of social media advertising, right? Because you're being very selective, going back to point one again, and direct marketing is also highly segmentable, then you can really focus your costs rather than try to sort of blanket everything with your message. And finally, it's measurable. So we talked about that already in terms of the return on investment. Right. Despite all the factors supporting the increasing popularity of direct marketing and all the advantages of direct marketing, or the pros, there are still some cons or some negatives. Now, I mentioned earlier how the image is improving because as databases become more sophisticated, you can be more selective and really target specific people with high quality messages, and that's improving the image of direct marketing. There is still, however, this idea that it's cheap and maybe sometimes irritating because you're contacting people that look on your database like they should be wanting to be contacted, but maybe they're not, and so then you're irritating them, right? It's like when you get sort of a happy birthday sort of direct mailer from some company that you signed up years ago and you forgot that you've even signed up with them, but it's your birthday and somehow they know that and you're getting stuff and you're like, well, why am I getting this in my mailbox, whether it be digital or physical, and it's a little bit irritating, right? So there is that I guess risk, or that con, that the database may not be up to date, and then you risk irritating your potential customers. This idea that it's cheap, I've got an example here which I'll show in class because it doesn't really work on a recorded PowerPoint, but essentially, this idea that if I'm receiving a direct marketing communication from this company that I've never heard of and they're not in the retail outlets, then it must be a crap brand. Otherwise, they would be in a mainstream retail environment, right? And so we kind of think back to those infomercials, which are a form of direct marketing, sort of a TV infomercial that's on a shopping network or something, that is in line with the philosophy of direct marketing. But if we think about the products that we see in infomercials, they do come across sometimes as a little bit cheap and maybe lacking in credibility, right? So this is an image problem, which then sort of also translates across to direct marketing as a promotional element. Direct marketing is very dependent on good databases. I've mentioned this over and over again, and then in the later part of one of these lectures, I'll talk about the specifics of how you use data within databases. But if the data is not good, it's the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you've got the wrong birth date or the wrong contact information, the wrong age, the wrong name, then obviously the direct marketing material you're sending out is going to either not even get to where you want it to get to, but it's going to get to the person with wrong information, making assumptions then about their needs and wants, and then irritating them further, and then degrading the reputation of your business, hence making your brand look cheap or lacking in credibility, right? So it's very dependent on good data. Number three, a lack of support from other promotional tools. So even though we talk about integrated marketing communications, and the idea is that you combine, you pick and choose from various promotional elements and traditional advertising and digital advertising, and you're trying to create sort of an integrated campaign, often with direct marketing, it ends up being the only thing that a small to medium business enterprise does. And so by that I mean that even though direct marketing combines really well with personal selling, sales promotion, and even traditional media, often companies don't do that, and they only do the direct marketing by itself. And so without that support from other promotional tools, you're not maximizing the potential of direct marketing. And then when it doesn't work, or it makes your company look cheap or irritating, you kind of blame direct marketing for not working, right? So it is a good tool to combine or integrate with other tools rather than just doing it on its own. But in saying that, many businesses often only use direct marketing as its only tool because of all the previous reasons on the previous slide looking at the pros of direct marketing, right? Because it's highly accountable, very selective, etc., etc. So it's so good that people use it on its own, but when they use it on its own, it's not as good as when you combine it with other tools, and then it might not work as well. And finally, rising costs of things like printing, P-mail or postage mail, traditional mail, or other labor that's necessary to conduct direct marketing. So if we go back to the whole point of direct marketing, which is to do more than transmit information, it aims to engage the respondent and get them to, respond in some way or take action. If that's the whole point, then that means there needs to be something within the direct marketing where you're expecting a response. And so in the very final lecture in this direct marketing series, we talk about fulfillment as the final component of direct marketing and how important that is. Because if the whole point of direct marketing is to expect a response, you need to be ready for that response then. Whereas other sort of advertising, if we look at TV, radio, and even digital advertising, sometimes if it's just brand building, sort of enhancing the reputation of the brand or improving its brand image in a way, trying to get these positive associations with the brand, you're not really expecting a response too much. You're just trying to tell a story about your brand and get your brand values out there so people understand your brand. But you're not expecting them to call you immediately or place an order or knock on your door at the store, right? Whereas direct marketing is, in fact, expecting some sort of response. So then you better be ready to deliver on whatever you've just promised. And with the rising costs of labor and postage and all those sort of fulfillment components of direct marketing, that might, in some cases, be seen as a disadvantage of direct marketing.